Hello everyone and welcome back to the second Piatigorsky Cup of 1966. We covered the main saga of how Boris Spassky won the tournament, and he, basically just won half a point ahead of Bobby Fischer. Even though he was, brilliant the entire tournament, Fischer went on a rampage in the second half of the tournament and almost overtook Spassky. But in the penultimate round, Spassky was able to get the nice draw in the martial attack, and in the final game, or rather in the final round, Spassky was able to defeat Dona, and Fischer was unable to take down Tigran Petrosian here. And that is exactly one of the reasons why I'm showing this, but not just that. This is perhaps the best game that was played in the event. It is Bent Larsen who got third place in the tournament against the Iron Tiger, and we've mentioned that the Iron Tiger almost never loses. He's one of the hardest players to beat that ever pretty much. And if he doesn't want a game, you're just not gonna beat him. But here in this tournament, he lost both of his games to Larsen, and this is one of the more famous ones. Now the problem is, perhaps some of you haven't seen it, is that the game was featured in the movie Sherlock Holmes, Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. And whenever anyone talks about this game, they talk about the game and they show the winning position or the winning combination from the position of the movie. And in the movie, they reversed colors for some reason. Here it is the white pieces that execute basically the winning combination. In the movie, it was Sherlock playing with the black pieces. And the moves to the game are not the same. They just reach the same final position, only with colors reversed. So if you want to see that position, I made a video on it some 7 years ago. I didn't show the entire game, just the final position. It's a really old video. We'll put a link to it in the description below. First thing you will see. You can also see Medo chilling in the background on the couch. So not a bad, not a bad thing to see. But that being said, let's check out this game now for the first time on this channel in its entirety. Bent Larsen versus Tigran Petrosian, round 7. So this is the first half of the tournament, and let's see the full game of shadows. Bent with white opens with pawn to e4, and Tigran replies with pawn to c5. He goes for the Sicilian defense, sorry about that, and knight to f3. We have knight to c6, pawn to d4, c captures, knight captures, and now pawn to g6. This is the accelerated dragon variation, which I thought it was kind of funny. It reminds me of that legendary movie, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Well, this is the Iron Tiger accelerated dragon. Let's see how it plays out. We have bishop to e3, bishop to g7, and pawn to c4. Now Bent opts for the Maroczy bind structure, putting the pawn on c4, and you have time for this as Tigran has yet to develop his knight, so there's no pressure on e4. You have time to grab even more control of the center, and Tigran will have a very difficult time executing d5 anytime soon. We have knight to f6, knight to c3, and now you could play something like d6. With the d6 we go into the standard accelerated dragon of the Maroczy bind, but here in this particular position, as you have yet to play that, you have this option of going knight to g4, and that's why it's important if you play the hyper accelerated dragon or the accelerated dragon or the regular dragon to know the differences, because now you can go after the dark square bishop, and there's nothing but queen captures on g4 here that white can play if white does not want to be worse. So that is exactly what Bent played. Okay, Tigran captures the knight on d4, and now queen back to d1. This is the standard line, and pretty much everyone plays it. If you don't know how to play with black, you will probably go knight back to c6, which is not a mistake or anything, but more popular is e5 or knight to e6 even, which is the most popular move even nowadays, and this is what Tigran plays. So knight e6, we have queen d2, and pawn to d6, we have bishop to e2 and bishop to d7. So both of them just nicely developing. Castles, and rook 8 to d1. Just nicely putting the rook on the open d file. Well, not open, but maybe soon to be open. Bishop to c6, now putting pressure on that e4 pawn, but mainly just grabbing hold of this diagonal, and now knight to d5. A pretty standard square for the knight against the Sicilian. and we have rook to e8. And I don't really have exact data on what is the completely new game, regarding a completely new position regarding this game, but I know that it is now, as of move 14, that this position has never been reached again. Bent Larsen talks about this game, and he even, spends some 5 or 6 pages in his book. I don't know what's the book called, but something like My 50 Memorable Games. And this book is featured this game is featured in that book. But okay, here we have pawn to f4, countering this rook to e8 move. Interestingly, Bent does not go for pawn to b4. Since, you can play it, you should definitely play it. But okay, he has a different thing in mind. Pawn to f4, we have knight to c7, and now even pawn to f5. And the reason why it's so dangerous is that if you trade on d5, let's say knight captures on d5 and d captures, the bishop has to move, the bishop moves, the bishop d3, black's position is very difficult to play. It's very difficult to find a move here. Probably something like rook b8, pawn to b5, and okay, maybe you hope for the best. But Tigran goes knight to a6, and now we have bishop to g4. Again, hard to say what Bent has against pawn to b4. Pawn to b4 here, threatening to play pawn to b5. Stopping knight to c5. It's hard to find a reason not to play pawn to b4. So probably he thought, well, okay, if Tigran wants me to play it, I'm just not gonna play it. Maybe that was his reasoning, but who knows. Bishop to g4, and now Tigran says, wow, you haven't played pawn to b4, that's really nice. I'm going to put my knight to c5, f captures on g6, h captures on g6, and queen to f2, putting pressure on that f7 pawn. Rook back to f8. So it's a pretty lame way of defending the f7 pawn, as Tigran already played rook to e8, but Tigran is that kind of a player. He doesn't mind. He will play rook f8, rook e8, rook f8, rook e8, 20 moves in a row if it will give him an edge on move 21. He just doesn't care. He's not like a proud player like, some other grandmasters that, they make a move, and it doesn't matter how bad of a position they have, they will not move the piece back. There's just no way. They rather lose the game. And here, the question is, how do you continue? Can you win the black queen? That is the real question here. Why is Tigran giving up the queen? Well, he's giving up the queen because if you capture on c5 and d captures, you can play knight f6 check and pick up the queen. It's a fairly simple line. I mean, 2 moves ahead. And then bishop captures, rook captures on d8, rook a captures. The problem is black has compensation for the queen. Yes, it's only in the form of a dark square bishop and the rook, but it is enough. You will put a bishop on e5, you will put a rook on d4, and with the light square bishop, there is nothing white can do in this game. It will be black playing for the win. If you could capture on c5, it would be a little bit better, but then bishop d4 check picks up the queen, so you don't even have that. So that's why after rook to f8, of course, Bent does not go for the queen. He plays pawn to e5. And what a weird move to make. What is this move even doing? Well, obviously, he wants captures to happen, so the line towards the black queen opens up without giving up the dark square bishop. But here we have bishop captures on e5, and now queen to h4. This is the other reason he played it, and the e7 pawn is hanging. So how do you counter this? The problem is, if you play pawn to f6, which looks like a move that can be played, you weaken the e6 square too much. You're just going to play queen h6, and now after queen to e8, you will play knight to c7. Attack the queen. So queen f7 really doesn't bother you, as you have e6 covered, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, if queen f7, okay, the knight is covering that, but now you capture, and of course you cannot capture due to bishop to e6. And it's a game over for black. So instead, after queen to h4, bishop captures on d5 is played. We have rook captures on d5, and now knight to e6. e6 could also be played. Hard to say what Tigran had against pawn to e6, but he played knight to e6, and now comes rook to f3. And okay, the threat is rook h3, queen to h7 checkmate. So how does Tigran stop this? Obviously, he didn't just overlook this. He is, Tigran Petrosian after all. So the way you could defend this is pawn to f5. Again, you can't really blame Tigran for not playing this and playing what he played, because what Bent found, well, it's, not that easy to spot. And unfortunately, I don't have the clock time. So for all we know, Tigran could be down to his last minute on move 23. So unfortunately, I don't have that data. But the f5 should have been played, and then, for example, rook h3, you have knight g7, and then you create an escape route for your king. That's pretty much it, like bishop f3, king f7, and you escape. That's all there is to it. However, after rook to f3, Tigran played bishop to f6. His idea is, okay, you cannot go here. If you go queen to h3, I don't really care. I'm just going to play queen d7, bishop to g7, pawn to f5. And my position is great. And if you play queen to h6, I'm just going to kick your queen away. And what are you really doing here? I mean, you can't, there's no way you break through here. But that is exactly where he is wrong. And I always... okay, here bishop from e5 to f6 was played, but in my favorite game of all time, and of course you guys know which one that is, Rashid Gebatovic Nejmedinov versus Oleg Chernikov, the Chigorin Cup of 1962. Basically, it was, I believe, a team championship. Bishop g7 to f6 was played, and then Nejmedinov played queen captures on f6. Here it would be a terrible move, but you know, I always take on the opportunity to advertise this game, as it is the greatest queen sacrifice ever made. If you haven't seen it, first link in the description below. Also check it. No, second link in the description below. First link will be the original Game of Shadows video I made. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, not a bad watch. Here he missed queen to h6, and it looks pointless because you can simply kick away the queen again. But you know, it only seems that way. Bishop to g7 was played, and now you are Sherlock Holmes. Finish the Game of Shadows, find the winning idea, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on either, you know, watching the movie or checking out my video 7 years ago with colors reversed, or even solving this position right now. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen captures on g6. This is what Ben played, and I think Tigran was not very happy when he saw this. And he, of course, did not capture the queen. Well, he did, just not right away. Point is that if you play f captures, then bishop captures on e6, and even without calculating, you can already see this is lost. If you go king h8 or king h7, we can briefly show a line. Let's say rook h3 check, bishop h6, you're going to have to give up the bishop. You cannot play rook captures. After king g7, black actually defends. But after bishop captures, the threat of bishop captures on f8 is just too great. And the only defense black can muster up is rook to f5, but still you're just going to captures, and now not even deliver this check. You can capture it, it's still winning, but it is much more beautiful to play bishop to f7. Take all of the squares away from the black king, and there is no defense. Bishop to f8 will be checkmate from the rook, and that's it. There is nothing you can play here. You can give one check, okay, sure, but white doesn't even have to win the queen with bishop to e3 discovery. White can just play king to f1. No more checks. Next move, just bishop to f8 will be checkmate. So that's what will happen. And another thing, if you accept f captures on g6 the queen, and after bishop captures, you could also play rook to f7. It's a bit more precise to defend it this way, but also it doesn't matter. You will simply capture this with check. After the king moves, you will capture on g6 with check. Now the bishop will block. It seems like, okay, black defended. Now the queen comes into the game. Could be dangerous. Rook h5, threatening rook h8 check to pick up the queen. Obviously, the bishop on f6 is pinned, and there's nothing for you to do. You cannot go queen b6. The b6 square is covered. You cannot go queen to a5. That's covered by the rook on h5. So if you can choose some other squares like d7 or, you know, okay, d7, that's you know, away from the rook, but it doesn't work. Well, either square doesn't really matter, because you simply open up the 7th rank with rook captures on f6 with check. And now after captures, you will give a check, and after you know, king g7, you will give another check. Okay, you give up the bishop, you capture the queen, and now you're up a full bishop, of course, completely winning. So that's why after queen captures on g6, poor Tigran cannot capture the queen. And he finds a nice resource. He plays knight to f4. It is the top move recommended by the engine, and he's not you know, the greatest defender ever by just you know, rolling over and resigning when someone plays a move like queen captures on g6. No, he will find resources, and you still have to play this game. So what's the idea? The idea is he wants to have e5 ready to cut off the rook from going for the attack against the black king. And okay, rook captures, also the queen is hanging, you have to do something now. Rook captures on e5, on f4, and now he played f captures on g6. e5 would have been, you know, it's hard to say if it would be more precise. Probably he just calculated it and decided he was losing either way. So even though the engine will give e5 as, you know, the more proper defense, in the eyes of, Tigran, it's too easy of a win. You will just play rook captures on f7, and after rook captures bishop to e6, for example, queen f6, and now you just go into the endgame. Captures, and after rook captures on d6, for example, this is completely winning. At some point you will capture the rook, let's say king f8, bishop captures, king captures, now you're going to deliver a check, you're going to pick up another pawn, and here you are up 3 pawns, and that is of course completely winning. So of course Tigran is not hoping that Bent doesn't know how to win an endgame, you know, when he's up 3 pawns. So even though it looks like, you know, maybe, you know, let's say if players rated lower than 1000 had an option, probably going for that line would be the best, because maybe, you know, you don't win the endgame. But at this level, that's not even a question. So he played f captures on g6 right away. We have bishop to e6 with check, rook to f7, and rook captures on f7. Now threatening nasty discoveries. King to h8, avoiding them, and also there's no rook h5, but Bent solves the position instantly, plays rook to g5. And the idea is rook g3, rook to h3, and there is nothing Tigran can do about that. He played pawn to b5, Bent just played rook to g3, and he was in this position on move 30 that Tigran Petrosian resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So a spectacular victory by Bent Larsen over the world champion Tigran Petrosian, you know, just bending him to his will, so to say. It was, I mean, incredible, and it's still nowadays, you know, in 2025, still incredible to see. And I was very happy that it was suggested, because I haven't shown the game. Like, okay, I've shown the game of shadows, but only the critical position and with colors reversed. But this is the first time ever that you get a chance to enjoy the game from the perspective of Bent Larsen, and you see the game in its entirety. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The game of shadows by Bent Larsen. I would like to thank Christopher Medema, Elias Wilhelm, Peter Van Dilst, Derek King, and Charles Benjamin Flynn for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.